All right. I watched the most hated film in America. Did you see Run, Hide, Fight?
Yes, I ended up.
You actually saw
I
it?
actually did.
Oh
I
my
did
God.
not. I probably would not have seen it. But I figured, since we were talking about it, it would be good if I like saw it too, just so like I could, come from a place of like actually having seen the movie and everything like that.
Sure.
But,
What did you think? Do you think it's a bad movie?
I don't think it's a badly made movie. I definitely disagreed with what it was trying to do, but it was. I was once again, having not known much about it going into it, I was expecting something that was much more poorly made, and I was expecting absolute garbage, and it wasn't that. But I do understand why there is definitely some pushback on it and everything.
So, just real quickly, this is a movie that is basically about a school shooting, and a high school senior girl is kind of a female John McClane version of Die Hard, right? So it's kind of like it's a high school shooter, female John McClane Die Hard. That's basically kind of
Die
the
Hard in high school
overall, right? Yeah. So I think it's towards the end of the year of a high school year. 4 kids have this very elaborate plan to take over the school, do a school shooting. They kill a bunch of kids. They live stream everything on Instagram Live and Facebook Live, and they're very much about garnering attention, and they want to kind of become famous, and they want the world to know how angry they are and all this stuff. And she basically, played by Zoe Hull. I'd never seen her or anything. I think she's on Pretty Little Liars. She's on some teen girl show that's very popular apparently. But she was great.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
she was great.
was good.
I think the guy who plays the main villain killer kid, the kid that's in charge, is played by the Eli Brown, and she is Zoe Hull. That's her character. Isabella May is the actress. They were great. The 2 leads were great. I have no complaints. Thomas Jane is in it, weirdly enough. He's kind of barely in it, so it's hard to really
you got
complain,
Thomas Jane and Radha Mitchell and Treat Williams as your famous people to, like, who was... There's somebody else that was... Oh, Barbara Crampton's in it, too, randomly enough, too. From, Reanimator and all those 80s slasher movies and everything.
Basically, she kind of... I don't want to get into spoilers and how it ends and all that stuff, but basically she, much like in Die Hard, she kind of makes her way and starts kind of picking off the terrorists and picking off the school shooters one by one as they're kind of going through, and it's done kind of in fun, elaborate ways or whatever. But, it kind of it's more interesting, I think, the backstory of this. And I mean, this movie is hated. I think is it at 13% on Rotten Tomatoes or something? I don't know.
I haven't checked,
but yeah, it's bad. So they hate that this movie kind of got made. They hate the subject matter, which is weird to me. Like we watch kids get killed in movies all the time. So I don't understand. I mean, and they did. I mean, Scream. There's a million horror movies where everyone who get killed. We've been watching it for 50 years. We've been watching like young people kind of get killed for 50 years in movies. So I don't know why this is weird and egregious and tasteless and classless and but all the reviews are kind of like, how dare you, sir? How dare you?
Well,
how dare you make a movie? And I found it like a weird. I don't know why not. I don't know why this is some sacred topic that you kind of can't do.
Well, the one thing, because that's hard. This is what the movie is kind of asking. It's kind of almost like goading you to be like, yeah, that's right. We're doing this. We're showing you this, and that's the like I said. It's not. This is really where how you do things really, I think, matters, especially when you're dealing with such a touchy subject, because it's basically, school shootings are a very somber subject, and this handles decently. Okay, this the visual language of this movie is something akin to, say, Elephant, which was another school shooting movie, or say even something like Green Room, where it tries to kind of highlight the realism, like kind of tries to do a decent amount of time to establish who these characters are and what they're doing, and like little groundwork things like, oh hey, it's senior prank day, so you have this tension building up of like kids popping into classes all day and like popping balloons, and you know something bad's going to happen, and that's all well and good, but when you get into the conceit, oh hey, it's Die Hard in a school shooting scenario, the thing is, it's like Die Hard, or say like, even if you want to compare it to something that's more similar to this plot line, so something like, say, Class of 1999, or even like, I don't know, Red Dawn or something like that, where it's kind of a fantasy wish fulfillment kind of thing, where it's like, oh, we have these bad guys that we can dispatch, and you know, it's all about, you have a character that you can root for, that, and you have these one-sided cartoonishly bad guys that you can take down and everything like that. So it does execute that idea well, and it's not, I did like some of the techniques that they used in it, but the gratuity of showing the kids, when it finally starts showing kids getting killed and everything like that, it did feel kind of exploitative, in the sense that, like, I didn't like how the main bad guy, the kid that's like in charge of all the school shooters, is basically Hans Gruber. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like, you're trying to lay the groundwork so early on, like, hey, this is realistic, this is real life and everything like that, and then you go full Die Hard. Well, what you're telling me is that you can do this too, you know what I mean? Which is a little, and it's kind of hard. That's the hard thing too, is like, this goes into so much other stuff, and it's hard to like get into it without editorializing and everything like that too. But it's also like one of those things, like, if you're telling me, if you start out saying this is essentially real, and then you kind of turn it into Die Hard, it feels like, I don't know, it's like encouraging, you know, people to, it's saying, hey, cops are kind of totally, you know, inadequate to the situation sometimes, and I don't know, yeah, little things like that definitely like rub me the wrong way. And like, I know there's some, you know, there is some character development for the school shooter kids, but they are essentially cartoonishly evil kids, and I don't think you're supposed to sympathize with them because they're school shooters or whatever, like, but it's still like, we're still talking about kids shooting kids or something like that, you know what I mean? Am I I don't know, I'm trying to like not, am I I don't know if I'm being too biased here or anything like that, but like, is that how does that track with you or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. I just it's a weird, it's kind of a, it was a fine to nothing movie for me, and I'm just always fascinated with why movies just become, you know, heinous.
Right.
And why, and it's interesting to me, because I, you know, in preparing for this, you know, I was like, I wonder how, because the backstory of this movie is very interesting, and it's interesting for a few different reasons, and it all kind of circles back to the premise. But the man who produced this movie is this guy named Dallas Sonye, and he made Bone Tomahawk and Dragged Across Concrete and Standoff at Sparrow Creek, The Brawl in Cell Block 99. Like, he clearly has a whole thing he's going for. Is it Craig Zellner movies? Like
Craig Zoller, I think.
He's done like all his movies and then a bunch of other movies. Like his company is the publisher of Fangoria magazine. Like he has like a real feel, and that real feel is very like clear especially in like the opening scene where she kills a deer. She kills a deer but doesn't quite kill it well enough, so she kind of has to put it out of its misery, and the way she chooses to do that is by like crushing its head with a rock. And you could tell immediately, like, oh shit, like this is a real tone that they're setting in this, so buckle up, like this is what it's going to be. And he couldn't find distribution for this, and a conservative right-wing website called the Daily Caller, that's famous because it was co-founded by Ben Shapiro, bought the North American distribution rights. And so they premiered it. They were like, hey, we're going to get into movies that follow our viewpoint, you know, I guess is what he described. He's like, we support this movie. They didn't make the movie. They just saw it at Venice, or it was offered to them, or I think the co-founders struck the deal with Saunier, and they produced it. They were initially going to pass, but then once they saw it and everything, they decided, hey, this will be our first movie that we want. So if you're subscribed to the Daily Caller website, this is how you would see the movie. It was interesting because I was watching the cast interviews, and the two young leads are young people, man. They're younger. They're like teenagers, right? They're supposed to be playing high schoolers. And they were just doing kind of behind the scenes. You can find it on YouTube. It's just, it's like a featurette, behind the scenes featurette. And they both talked about, they were like, yeah, I was really scared to do this movie. Like, I was really nervous. Like, I think it's a good movie to do. I think it's interesting, but both of them said they had people tell them not to do this and that it'll ruin your career and then blah, 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 and all this stuff.
I was totally hesitant. I was very, very nervous. It was scary.
People are just afraid to do this. And I dealt with a little bit of that coming into this. I understand that I'm going to get some lashback for this, and I accept that. I was just more worried about, might this ruin my career for years to come?
And so I'm fascinated. Like they're both on Instagram, because I was like, I wonder if they're talking about this or whatever. They're getting like harassed or anything. They haven't posted really. Both of them haven't really posted a lot about it. I don't see a lot of promotion. So they made a movie, and then they didn't know who was going to distribute it, but a very right-wing website basically took it over as its distributor. And I don't know how that's kind of affected them. But I can't imagine it's great to be trying to work in Hollywood when your big new movie is being like, distributed by the guy that is getting like fire alarms pulled on him and like Code Pink, or is it Code Pink or Operation Pink?
Oh, I don't even know.
They basically will go and like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, they'll protest his talks. He'll like have a talk about how he'll have like a debate on campus or give a talk or whatever. And they'll like shut it down. They won't let him have it. Like he can't do it at Berkeley. Berkeley like told him, you can't come because we can't afford, or we don't want to pay for the security that would be necessary to protect you.
Damn.
So it's kind of wild, right? So it's like wild stuff like that. So and this is also these are the guys they just hired Gina Carano. Gina Carano got canceled, so they're bringing Gina Carano in so that she's gonna be in some movie or show or something that they're working on, but. It's just kind of interesting. Like, I wonder how those kids feel. Like, if they'd still go back and make this, knowing that the only way you were going to see this is on this website, which is a very strange, interesting kind of, I guess, a new way that things are going to happen.
Was this sitting on the shelf for a minute, or like?
No, because it premiered at Venice,
like this year, or this most recent one. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's not like new, or it's new. It's not like it hasn't been sitting there and waiting. But it is interesting. It's like we just couldn't find. I don't know. The producer had some credit where he's like, "That's liberal Hollywood for you. They just don't want to talk about this stuff, and they wouldn't, blah blah." So either they would take it, but not under the pretense or the deal structure that he liked or whatever, or maybe he just got no offers and that was the best offer. And then Daily Caller was like, "Yeah, we'll snatch it up." But
yeah, it's. I mean, unfortunately, it's like. It's hard to think of a topic that would be more harder to sell these days, because it's kind of one of those things. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, it's like, hey, this seems like it's not the right time to release something like this, but then it's never the right time to release something like this, because there's always some sort of national tragedy with school shootings and everything like that, specifically, or just shootings in general or whatever. But I don't think it should be totally blacklisted or whatever. I don't know the specifics. Like, I tried to like make a point of like not reading any reviews or seeing. I didn't know this movie existed until you told me about it or whatever. So, but it is, yeah, it's a tough one to do. It's a risky movie for sure, but Ben Shapiro has clearly got his thing that he's doing, so hey, fucking, you want to put Gina Carano in a movie, do it, you know what I mean? Like, I would say, like, keep on, like, if you have like a whole different demographic or whatever, like, fucking make it. You know what I mean? And if you do good movies, then like that's the thing is like if the work speaks for itself, then I'll, you know, have, you know, like even if it's not my thing, I'll respect it or whatever. But you know, like that's the thing is like I think in general there's a lot of things that might slant conservative that tend to frankly not be good, like which are, say, I'm thinking more specifically like pure flicks kind of things, like that kind of sort of stuff or whatever. But that's also,
what is that?
That's like kind of more the religious-y kind of stuff or whatever, like, you know, those kind of Hallmark-ish kind of movies or whatever.
Is that who's the dude?
There's like one guy that's in charge of all of it. He does, is like the God's Not Dead guy. I think the people that make all of those movies or whatever.
Who's the guy? He was a child actor, and now he's like super Christian.
The Step by Step guy or whatever.
No, not Step by Step. It was
Saving Christmas.
What was the movie?
That guy?
Man, I don't know. No, he was a TV star, and he became like super religious, and he makes like all like straight to DVD religious movies now.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
I know he did like Saving Christmas or something like that, but that's its own cottage industry or whatever. And so, but the thing is, like, I hear a lot of people being like, you know, like, oh, hey, why don't they make more movies like this in Hollywood? And the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, most of those movies are bad. You know what I mean? Like they, you know, it's one of those things where if you're too message focused, sometimes it'll turn out bad. But like, you know, this, for example, was a movie that and once again, it's totally different. It's like totally different subject matter, totally different tone and everything like that. But I did think, you know, filmmaking wise, it did a pretty okay job. I still didn't agree with what it was doing, but I did, you know, like it was well done enough. And they definitely, like, you could tell they had a low budget. You know, like, you know, most of the movie takes place in that cafeteria, right? So, and that's the other thing too, when I was watching it a little bit too, which is kind of begs a whole nother discussion or whatever, is people are dumb and somehow still take the worst message away from media sometimes, even if it's like clearly not that. So even though like the bad guys in this are clearly not people to be, you know, idolized or anything like that, you know, if you come out with a movie where somebody fucks a pie, there's going to be one dumbass who burns his dick fucking a pie in real life. So that is one thing, you know, when they had the shot of like the car crashing through the cafeteria, and it was weird because it did kind of look like our high school a little bit. You know, I guess most high schools look alike, but
they probably look pretty close.
Yeah, like I was definitely like, you know, once again, even though the movie's not encouraging this, I could see someone getting ideas from something like that. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's out in the ether now, what are you going to do? But you get what I'm saying? You know, like that's a whole
I hear you. I mean,
weird moral gray area for me, you know?
I don't know. But like to me, man, like the whole, well, don't make movies because we're worried people might act like how many Joker movies do we have?
And I agree, and that kind of like is my issue with a bunch of other stuff too. I think
like I love movies about shit that I would never want anyone to actually
100%.
That's where I want that part of people's subconscious.
Yeah,
looking into doing that. You know what I mean? Like we watched, you know, Phoenix. What's his name? Joaquin Phoenix. Execute a man on live TV on a talk show.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people could do that, but like Todd Phillips isn't worried like, oh shit, are people going to execute Conan O'Brien if I put this in the movie? Like,
well,
I don't know.
That was kind of my beef with the Joker movie a little bit, is like it felt like it's just like when there's things out there that feel like they're kind of like I said, like that was beef I had with Joker too, but there's like certain things where it's like kind of like like, you know, we're encouraging your anger. Or, I mean,
there was literally a mass shooter that dressed up like went to the Dark Knight thing, right?
Yeah.
And they just keep making them, right? So like, there was a guy who literally took the message of that, and they just go, "Yep, well, you know, we're gonna just keep doing it." And it's like everyone loves the Dark Knight, everyone loves Joker, everyone loves the Batman, everyone loves.
No.
So I don't know.
I totally agree, and I think it's like one of those things where it's like now it's not just like an issue of like just this movie. We're talking about like the state of movies as a whole. But to bring up something, you know, I think I had talked about on a previous podcast, like, you know, I had seen a movie that I kind of liked called The Hunt that came out last year. That was very controversial and kind of offensive, and I totally understand why it would be to people, but like I think the one thing with that for me was it's such a ridiculous premise that like you can't take it as seriously. Like that's my whole thing is like Die Hard in a high school works if like the people holding up the high school are robots or aliens or something, you know what I mean? Like I need some sort of extra layer of fantasy separation because like, the whole thing is like, okay, yeah, if it was in a high school, I'd crawl through the air vents. I would check for, weapons here and everything like that. But like now you're bringing it into this very real world situation, which many people have had to deal with and everything like that. So then it suddenly kind of goes into this whole greater conversation that is like, much harder to parse,
Yeah. Like, how would you feel if they made a Columbine movie? Like, we're going to make a movie about Columbine. The whole movie is about the Columbine killers, and we're going to reenact exactly what they did.
I mean, they basically did that with Elephant a little bit. Like, maybe not beat by beat. And that's, like, one thing I kind of kept on... why I kept on thinking of that a little bit, because there was a few Columbine-ish movies that have come out since Columbine, and even if it's not explicitly Columbine, there's a few like say like We Need to Talk About Kevin or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like clearly influenced by it. And the one thing with those is it's like with Elephant, it's more like it definitely firmly roots you in this like, oh hey, what's it like to be stuck in the middle of a horrible event like this, and it kind of establishes all the lives of the people. And the big difference between them is it doesn't go into this Die Hard scenario, and that kind of begs the question, like, yes, I do think, if you have trained yourself with self-defense and everything like that, it's not bad to know how to get yourself out of a situation like that, and it's not bad to say, hey, it's okay to defend yourself. But there is like little subtle hints in this movie where it feels like for instance, the police are coded as just like very impotent and like unable to do take care of the situation.
Like the school guard, we didn't have one when we were in school. We didn't have one, but I think in today's age, every school, at least every public school, has probably a head of security or something, like a rent-a-cop that's walking around.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of that shit.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's like a staple of many schools today. And then they have the whole scene where it's like the big bad kid talks to his guidance counselor and talks about how you never thought I would make anything of myself, Mr. Johnson, and everything like that. Right. So that's the sort of stuff, that's the part I found most grating about the movie, is like things like that are things that are just like boilerplate, like Die Hard dialogue, you know what I mean? Like that's why I kept on saying he's like Hans Gruber. But if you're going to go in a subject that is this clearly like a hot topic issue in the real world, then I need something more than Hans, basically.
Do you think that people hate this because the message of the movie is guns and training equal safety, and that you're basically nothing without those things, and you're just another scared, powerless person curled up on the floor? Or is it like taking action is bad?
No.
If you can't, like, what do you like? I'm trying to get to the core of like people's absolute hate.
Well, no, I get you, and see, that's the thing, is like same thing. Like, there's tons of people out there that like know how to handle themselves and like firearms and all that other sort of stuff, and I have total respect for those people and everything like that. But when you have a movie like this, especially if you're like a high schooler, say you're a high schooler, you watch this movie and you're in this sort of situation, like I would be more likely to maybe do something stupid that might escalate the situation. You know what I mean? I might be like, oh, hey, I can be like this chick in this movie. Boom, shot in the head. You know what I mean? Like it's
right.
So that's the one thing, and it does. Once again, like I don't know if I'm looking into this too much, but it does feel like sometimes you have movies like this that could like inspire a little bit of that vigilante justice thing. And once again, like I get it. Like, school shooters is like a real serious subject. I'm not very sympathetic for many of them, even though I know they're kids and they need to have if they have mental issues, they need to have these talked out and they need to be stopped beforehand and everything like that. But like, yeah, the whole idea that it's basically because the law is impudent, you might need to like. There's a lot of that, and even though I feel like the main character or actress is pretty well written, and it like the main actress does a really great job with her and everything like that. She is kind of that. She never does anything wrong. Her only character flaw is she's too dedicated and can't let go of her mom. So like that's the thing is it is a little didactic. It's not like too much. Like they do a good enough job kind of getting you into the plot, but they do slip in little lines of like, like little things like, oh, you're too busy being triggered to think about all of the people that you killed. And so, they bring up some cogent points, but they definitely, little things like that definitely irked me when I was watching it a little bit. But like I said, I was expecting to totally hate this movie, and I didn't, there were things about it more on the technical side, but I did find it was a more solid piece of work than I was expecting.
Yeah, because I think that's what I'm always trying to get to the bottom of like, we watch movies based on the reviews, and I feel like that's most of people because there's so much content that we're forced to kind of like use services to help filter out what is worth our time, because time is the most valuable thing we have in life, right? Yeah. So like when a movie has a horrible review, like a score, like a Rotten Tomatoes score is just horrible, it just means don't waste your time on this movie, right? But like I'm always like interested in how like offensive to me equals bad, don't watch.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where I'm like, well, is it technically product wise bad? Did you not enjoy it? Like I'm always interested, but I feel like how many movies kind of fall through the cracks of these systems where we just don't really even explore them because we've let someone else tell us not to watch them, or don't waste your time, or don't be challenged by this, or whatever. You know what I mean?
I mean, that is definitely something to consider, and it's hard to say because I feel like that develops in critic circles no matter what, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's even if you're not all gathering in the same spot and everything like that, I feel like it's just weird. Sometimes it's like a timing thing. Like, like for instance, like whatever's going on in the world might not gel with whatever the filmmaker had in his mind when he started production. And then by the time the movie gets released, it just really isn't the right time or place. And then sometimes those movies get discovered like decades later and revisited and thought of as masterpieces and stuff like that. So it's very weird. Like, it's the whole thing where, culture is very fickle and kind of cyclical or whatever. So yeah, it's hard to say. It's every movie's like a snowflake. So and there are countless ones that have not seen the light of day for one reason or another. So
all right, well, what do you think? Would you give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, do not see it, or do see it?
I mean, I would say if you know like what to expect by gratuitous Die Hard in a high school, if you would probably know if you're into that or not. It's not schlocky, but it is pretty much what you would expect. So yeah, that's basically if that's your jam, then you will probably like this, and if it's not, then don't go see it. I would say.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Where if you know those producers and their past work, and you're kind of comfortable with that subject matter, I think it's worth your time. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's poorly made. I think it was well acted. Yeah, it's weird, controversial content, but I don't think that equals bad. And I just don't like to see things just be labeled as bad because they're kind of uncomfortable or whatever. But so many of the reviews that I read were like, this is horrible, this is uncomfortable, but it's bad. Like, it's technically bad. Don't see it. It's not like, and I was like, that's just not to the credit of the product. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would say if you have the capacity, give it a shot, because it's a movie that's you're being told is absolute dog shit, and it's just not. And that is the I feel like I'm defending this thing when I really don't care, but it's really just like it's a system that I don't agree with.
Right.
So if you're not really comfortable with that system, just kind of just the myopic, kind of group think that says this is bad because you don't like Ben Shapiro or you don't like the producers. I don't know, man. Like, it's just a piece of art. You know what I mean? To me, like, give it a shot. I encourage almost everyone to watch everything except that piece of shit 2067 on Hulu.
Or Willy's Wonderland. Don't see that.
Or Willy's Wonderland. But anyway, there you go. So I think it's worth your time. I think it's an interesting movie. I like to see a cool, strong, independent female out there just killing people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. She was a good.
She was out there getting it.